Hey, Lauren Burke of the Possible Lab here, providing another organizational hack idea sponsored by Notehouse, the simplest, easiest way for everyone who takes notes on humans to keep track of their files and cases. So this hack that we're talking about today, and I'm going to minimize myself so you can see it, is called a grant language library. The grant language library that I am sharing with you all today is one that I compiled at Atlas DIY, which is a cooperative center for undocumented youth and their allies that I co-founded in 2012. The reason that I created this thing called the Grant Language Library and use it with all of my clients is because so often when you are writing grants, you'll sort of have the same thing come up over and over again. And rather than have to reinvent the wheel, you can just use past language that you've used. And what I found myself doing a lot at Atlas was sort of being like, oh, what was that grant where we talked about metrics, or what was that grant where we talked about this? And it really made people be reliant upon me as the founder and the executive director to know where everything was kept, which both can be really time consuming for you if you're an executive director or a development director, but also is just really not that responsible, because what if something happens to you? You want to make sure that people have access to this information. And because so many grants ask questions that other grants also ask, it just makes sense to make a grant language library. So I'm going to run through it really quickly, but basically what it is you just create like bold topics that are things that are often talked about. So here we have mission and history, we've got the community, the need, metrics, our team, sustainability, and those are the sections of this grant language library. Basically, what all you do is copy and paste language once you're like, yes, this language feels really solid. You know, when you're writing grants, hopefully you'll have one or two people looking over it, so you'll have this in there. And you're going to just copy and paste that language in. And then what I also always do is say what the foundation was that we were writing for, the date that we applied for it, and whether or not it was received. The important thing about this is, one, you want to have the name of the foundation, because sometimes you might be like, oh, did we talk about this other thing in context in the grant? And then you know basically where to look for it. If you're using Google Documents, usually this would be hyperlinked to the full application. This is just a sample, so I don't have all the hyperlinks and everything in there. You want to have the date to make sure that nothing is super out of date, right? So like, this was 2016, so I obviously wouldn't still be using this language, but you know, you might want to sort of keep in mind like, oh, in 2018 we hired a new team member. Our team language is from 2016, so we want to redo that. And then the received or didn't get it, honestly, is not that important. If you watched my video about the grant matrix, you'll know that like writing grants can be kind of a crapshoot. And so just because you didn't get something doesn't mean that the grant application was horrible, and vice versa. Something else that you can do here is that you could do word count. In case you're new to Google Docs, a really easy way to do a word count is just highlight it all, go to tools, and then word count. And so you could write like 199 words. Because sometimes you might have a mission in history that you have a 50-word pitch, a 200-word pitch, a 500-word pitch, right? Depending upon the word count of the grant. And by having it up at the top, it's just a really simple, easy way for if somebody's doing like a 50-word grant, then they can just copy and paste super easily. Yeah, and that's basically it. This is something that every time you write a grant, you know, if you tweak something, you want to include that new language in there. If you write about something new, you want to put it in here too. It shouldn't be something that's super niche, because this should be, you know, what you don't want to have happen is that you basically copy and paste every aspect of your grant, of every grant into this document, because it won't be as useful. But stuff that's coming up over and over, absolutely pop it in. And so you have an ongoing report of your grants. I hope that is helpful. Please also check out Notehouse, and yeah, keep watching these videos. Tell me if they're useful.